Hi, I'm Max Keiser. Last week, rumors abounded that Hasbro was going to introduce a new Monopoly board game without jail. Finally, commentators thought, it was going to reflect the real world of American oligarchic capitalism, where there is no such thing as jail for the elite players. But no, the Wall Street Journal report was wrong, typically. Hasbro said there would, in fact, be jail in the game of Monopoly version, as there always has been jail. Now, for more on this, we turn to Stacy Herbert.
Yes, Max, because Hasbro, even a game, justice is sacrosanct. They're saying, of course, there's no such thing as having no jail in Monopoly. Now, the reason why they have a new game coming out is because apparently young people don't have the attention span to spend more than half an hour in a game. So they're trying to shorten it, and that was one of the ways, is just get rid of jail. But, you know, it also gave away, I think, the Wall Street Journal, how they see the game being played by the players on Wall Street, is that they don't have to go to jail. So we see that in the first headline, SAC's Cohen risks losing fortune while keeping his freedom. Stephen A. Cohen, founder of a $14 billion hedge fund, indicted in what the U.S. calls an unprecedented insider trading scheme, faces a future without a fund or a multi-billion-dollar fortune. On the other hand, he won't be behind bars.
Oh, yeah. Well, Stevie Cohen has got this, version of the Monopoly board where there is no jail. You see, Stevie Cohen is he's making it real. He's doing it. You know, he doesn't want jail, Stevie Cohen. You know, he's reinventing the game. You see, that's. Yeah, there's jail on here somewhere.
There's go to jail.
Yeah, go
it's
to
always
jail.
there.
Go to jail, you know, in case you don't get a good view of this. It says right there, you know, go to jail, Stevie Cohen, okay? This is, no jail means that's not free market capital. Continue, please.
Well, of course, the U.S. Attorney General in New York says that, Cohen himself wasn't charged, unlike at least 8 former SAC fund managers and analysts who have faced or are facing fraud charges for their roles in a scheme which allegedly involved more than 20 companies and went back as far as 1999. So here they have a classic case of RICO. They could charge with RICO, but they're saying here, like most of his trading floor, were all engaged in insider trading schemes. You know, this is like approaching Al Capone, and Al Capone saying, I had no idea all the guys working for me were thugs and murderers and running alcohol and drugs and all sorts of other stuff.
Oh, yeah, Stevie Cohen out there in Connecticut. You know, here's the rule book. Here's Stevie Cohen. I don't play by no stinking rules. I'm like Jamie Dimon. I don't play by no stinking rules. Here's the Monopoly real estate portfolio. All I need to do is borrow a few $1 trillion risklessly for free from the Federal Reserve, buy all this stuff, then charge everybody rent, because I'm a rent-seeking fool. I'm an oligarch. I'm Jamie Dimon. I'm Stevie Cohen. The laws are for other people. Ha, 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 ha. That's my version of Monopoly, suckers.
Well, you know, it would be, a game wouldn't last very long. That's a very good way to make it very short, is that one of 2 players, only one, doesn't have to stop it, go to jail. And the other one doesn't get to stop on the $200, collect $200, pass go. Like, the ordinary person never even passes go. They don't pass go because they don't get to collect the $200.
Now let me just stop you there for a second, because you're making an excellent point. The average person does not collect their $200. I mean, yeah, sure, they're on food stamps, and yeah, sure, they're on benefits of some order or another, and America's becoming an oligarch casino kind of rotten old gulag, but for the vast majority of Wall Street bankers, though, they just get this free money. They get the money. They get the free money. They're given these subsidies from the Federal Reserve. They don't pay any interest on this money that they take. They are, in fact, leeching the system of all its possible financial integrity, and they're doing so with reckless abandon without any rules or kind of adherence to laws whatsoever, like Stevie Cohen of SAC Capital is demonstrating. They're just free money, no laws.
Well, in fact, Monopoly is kind of perpetuating a myth that all of us can participate on the same game board. Because what it is, yes, the average American will collect $200 a month in food stamps, where the likes of Stevie Cohen or, Jamie Dimon or Lloyd Blankfein or any other banker or connected group, Halliburton just admitted to destroying evidence in the Deepwater Horizon, Gulf of Mexico oil spill. They admitted to it, and all they're having to pay is a $200,000 fine, avoiding jail, not being criminally prosecuted. Any other normal person would go directly to jail, sit the rest of your life out, essentially. But the bankers will collect hundreds of millions, 200 million, 200 billion, 200 trillion in subsidies and bailouts.
Right. The average schmo gets that $200 food stamp to go to Walmart to buy some baby formula for their screaming little American tweeby. But most of the other bankers are there, and they're getting $200 billion freebies by just going around the board. Everyone else is trapped in these little houses. They're trapped in these little units, these little ghettos of American ghettos, the American ghetto casino gulag. And they give them the roll of the dice. They say, here, go to Vegas and roll the dice. Maybe you'll make $1 million, but you'll give us $50,000 an hour because that's the way we got it here in the casino gulag.
I mean, you dropped it right there, but there's now a new special dice because people don't have the attention span. These little babies on $200 worth of food stamps a month, they don't have the attention spans to even participate. Because why? They don't need to participate because they're not going to ever collect the $200 free money for real.
No, they're just trapped on this board like a hamster board. They should make this monopoly for hamsters. That should be a very good selling product for many of these people.
But prosecutors against Stevie Cohen are charging him on civil fraud charges, so with money laundering, that he commingled the profits with his own. So his $9 billion fortune is at stake. They could possibly seize it all. But when so many people from a single hedge fund have engaged in insider trading, it is not a coincidence, Barar has said. Today's indictment is not just a narrative of names and numbers. It is more broadly an account of a firm with zero tolerance for low returns, but seemingly tremendous tolerance for questionable conduct, he said. So SAC, over time, became a veritable magnet for market cheaters. But you could say that, Max, about the entirety of Wall Street, the entirety of the corporate culture, that it becomes a magnet for market cheaters, whether it's in the energy markets in California, which are one of the biggest magnets. It seems like it's a black hole it draws in all the market fraudsters. It never stops. Nobody closes that black hole. But the entire system is like that.
Well, let's talk about Stevie Cohen's commingling for a second. He'll have a pile of money that's given to him through the repo market, through the Federal Reserve, and he'll get some real estate that he acquired through some ill-gotten gain, some scheme, and he's got it here in this big fund over there at SAC Capital. And then he'll take a bet with this money, and he'll make a bet, let's say, oh, the yen's going to go up or down, and he'll put some money on the bet like this. If he's right, then he takes the money back and says, oh, that's my money. That's my money, I made a winner. But if it's a losing bet, he says, oh, you lost your money. Oh, sorry, you're a loser. Oh, sorry, you're a loser. Oh, let's make another bet. Oh, I'm gonna bet that the Dow Jones is gonna go higher. Here, I'll bet this amount of money. Let's see if it works. Oh, the Dow Jones goes higher. Oh, that's my money. I made more money. Oh, the Dow Jones goes down. No, sorry, that was your money. That's your bet. Oh, no, you keep it. You keep the loser. Oh, you keep the loser. See, it's all the winners I keep under my commingling scheme. The losers, you keep. Oh, by the way, you need a bailout by the government? Go see the government. Go see Barack Obama. Go get your Obamacare. Go get your Obama phone. Yeah, take the money from Obama. I got the winners. You keep the losers.
Well, speaking of, keeping the winners and getting rid of the losers and the threat of jail, here's a headline: JP Morgan to sell commodities business. Move comes amid regulatory scrutiny of Wall Street. The largest U.S. bank is getting out of the power plant and warehouse business amid heightened regulatory scrutiny of Wall Street's ownership of such assets. So, you go to jail on the monopoly board called the U.S. economy, then these guys stop committing fraud.
Jamie shrugged. Or JP Morgan shrugged. This is another example. In other words, they were going to apply the rule of law to Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan. So what did he do? He said, well, I don't want to be in that business. I don't want to be in any business where I have to adhere to the rule of law. If I have to adhere to the rule of law, I'm getting out of that business. Blythe Masters, under the bus. All that money is mine? Yes. All the risk is yours. Law? Not for me. Law for you. Law, not for me. Oh, you're going to apply the law to me? Oh, I'm going to do my Atlas shrug. Oh, I pretend I'm a free market capitalist. I pretend that I'm actually for fair play. No, I'm a frickin' stealing, leeching scum that would steal the nickel off my mother, take her gold teeth out and sell for $1 if I could to. Jamie Dimon, retrograde moron.
Well, you know, since 2003, since the Federal Reserve and Congress allowed this to happen for banks to get involved in the physical commodities market, which they have always been prevented from doing, but then they were allowed to get in, JP Morgan spent many, many, many billions becoming the #1 in the world. They're the top natural gas. They control the natural gas market. They control, remember, they owned half of all of the copper in the warehouses in London at one point. And in JP Morgan's 2010 purchase of Henry Bath & Son, a metal warehousing network gave it more than 70 facilities on 4 continents from New Orleans to Singapore, nearly 11% of the industry total. And they're staying in the silver and gold market, though.
Well, they're horizontally integrated is the business term for this. In other words, they buy up all the possible horizontal warehouses and metal shops that would give them complete, total monopoly positions and monopoly pricing. And then this was going to be a great way for these scoundrels and financial terrorists on Wall Street to print more money. And then somebody thought, well, maybe, you know, it's against the law to be a monopoly position and manipulate markets. So they said, no, we'll sell out of that. But you say they're going to stay in the silver and gold position.
Well, but more importantly, let's compare it to the first story about Stevie Cohen, because his whole organization is being charged with insider trading. The firm is. Now, the reason why these firms bought up the physical commodities markets, why the banks were so interested in spending billions and billions of dollars and all of their effort buying this. One attraction was that such businesses allowed banks an early look at information on supply and demand. They could profit by seeing the flow of raw materials and trading based on that, plus their added knowledge of financial markets, i.e. they were insider trading. They could see before anybody else the supply and demand, the true supply and demand situation. Now, the interesting thing here is that I mentioned the California energy markets. You know, JP Morgan was just fined over $400 million for rigging those markets. Well, Senator Jeff Merkley, Democrat of Oregon, says, it reminds me of the potential for problems that occurred when Enron was both supplying electricity and running electricity trading markets. Duh! Like this, like how many times does the same crime have to happen before they say, let's stop it, let's introduce a go to jail, do not leave for the next 3 rounds or the next 3 lifetimes.
Right, and Jeff Skilling, who was one of the architects of Enron's crimes, is going to be let out of jail early. Presumably, he'll get a job at J.P. Morgan. So in other words, J.P. Morgan's attitude toward commodities is what the NSA's kind of approach through data, Facebook and data. They want to control, like a huge vacuum, all the data, all the information, and manipulate it, knowing 360-degree full spectrum dominance of all the data. So Jamie Dimon wants to say, oh, let's just control every single commodity trade out there in the world, take a little piece, a little rent-seeking.
Well, they're exiting this market now because people, you know, you have revolutions around the world, partly because since 2003, all the prices of oil, agricultural goods, copper, metals, everything has risen because they've created artificial monopolies. And then there were big corporations like Miller's Coors, you know, beer. When the beer manufacturers start complaining, those guys, you know, out in Pennsylvania are going to rise up.
Fair enough. All right, Stacy Herbert, thanks so much for being on the Keiser Report.
Thank you, Max.
Stay tuned for the second half. A whole lot more. Welcome back to the Keiser Report. Time now to turn to precious metals expert Andrew Maguire. Andrew, welcome back to the Keiser Report.
Max, it's always great to be here.
All right, we're talking gold again. And I think first I want to just ask you a question, see if you agree with this. You know, people understand what happened back with Northern Rock. When it collapsed, there was a run on the bank. You know, people were lined up outside the bank. Give me my money, because there was a panic that because of the fractional reserve banking system, not everyone's deposits are there at the same time. There's a panic. They go to the bank. Isn't this what we're seeing in the gold market? Isn't there essentially a run on the London Bullion Markets Association right now?
Absolutely there is, and we've got lots of evidence for that. So, I mean, I think, you know, you had an excellent interview, I know, with Alistair MacLeod on Saturday, which I looked at. And I want to say I want to agree with everything he said. I think what we try and do is try and keep it really simple as to what all this means. I think what we're seeing is essentially, we talked about backwardation, and I think a lot of people start to glaze over when we talk about all the technicals. But in simple terms, what we're seeing now, as evidenced in GOFO rates, which have been described by Sandeep Jaitley extremely well, and people can go back and look at your other interviews and look at what exactly that means technically. But essentially what it means is the bullion banks right now are having to pay a premium to buy physical. Now, that's unusual. I mean, we were in backwardation in gopher rates for the last 15 days, and possibly it's too early now to check, but probably 16. That's unprecedented. And what it means in reality is that there is a run on the bank. The bullion banks are having to go out and pay a premium to buy bullion. Now, given the fact there's no producer hedging going on of any size, which might explain some of that, really what we're saying is they're actually going out, paying a premium, buying bullion to provide bullion to the market because there's a shortage of bullion.
Well, there's two things going on here. There's a shortage of bullion going on, and a lot of drivers to that phenomenon are happening on the central bank level and the big macro level. But there's something else going on here, which is that what you're saying here, technically speaking, is that for traders, they could sell their spot gold today and essentially buy it back in the 3-month contract for a locked-in arbitrage profit. But because they are so uncertain that they could buy it back in the future, they're not even willing to pick up the free money that's being availed to them with this arbitrage. That's backwardation. That's completely abnormal. That's a telltale sign of a market that's in stress, duress, correct?
That's absolute evidence. I mean, there's the bottom line. I mean, why would I, in the month of July, we're still in July here, average about $1.60 an ounce a premium spot, which is the cash market in London. And I'm not talking about Shanghai, I'm not talking about Vietnam, where you can get between $6 and $100 premiums an ounce. I'm talking about London, the global market, the global marketplace for gold. So it is a true benchmark, i.e. the fix comes up to this morning, whatever the price is what I can sell or buy my bullion for. Now, why as an arbitrager, why as a bank or a hedge fund or somebody in the profit business, wouldn't I take, and it's been up to $2.15 a matter of days ago, but an average of $1.60. Why wouldn't I sell 2 million ounces today, give my bullion over, take up to a $2 million profit, and not wait 90 days, wait, the contract's about to expire, I could wait less than 30 days and get my bullion back. Well, as you said, why not?
Because there's no confidence that these markets like the COMEX and the London Bullion Market Association are going to survive another 30 days intact as we know them.
Yeah, and what I'd be worried about is me getting my, and I believe if we're talking a default here, essentially what we're saying.
That's right. We're talking about the long-rumored, anticipated, talked about default on the COMEX or London Bullion Markets Association, but based on market in the action, the run on the bank, it's either at hand right now or another extraordinary event is about to take place.
Yeah, well, it's on now, and I think here's the interesting part. On April the 1st, we saw the ABN AMRO default. It became public because a client of mine, and I think other clients, suddenly came onto the marketplace and said, or came to the press and said, well, hold on a minute, I can't get my bullion back. You've got faith in a system that's been held. People have said, look, go to the London Bullion Market Association. I've got 2 kinds of ways of storing my gold. And they steer you into an unallocated contract because there's no storage costs, much cheaper. We'll just give you a piece of paper that says you own this. Suddenly, we know for years and years and years we've had suspicions about the leverage, the 100-to-1 leverage of paper to gold. All of a sudden, ABN AMRO comes out and actually is the first LBMA default. The very first. So
right now, the timing on this goes back to your testimony to CFTC about the fact that these markets are trading at 100-to-1 leverage. When you went and testified to CFTC about the alleged manipulation in the silver market, it came out in testimony from the other side, almost by accident, mentioned that there was 100-to-1 leverage on the LBMA, which up until then nobody was really thinking about. And then it seems like from there, Germany wanted their gold. Ambro went into default. You really set in motion a chain reaction, Andrew Maguire. You are the whistleblower extraordinaire in this space. So now what you were imagining was going to happen, 6 months ago, a year ago, is all happening right now. So I'm sorry to interrupt. Continue.
Yeah, really. So really, there we have the default. Now, what happens is that suddenly the Fed, the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, the central banks of central banks go, holy smoke, we have a problem. We cannot afford to have a bullion bank go down. If there's a run, now immediately you've got one default, what's going to happen? Everyone's going to do your Northern Rock thing and line up, I want my bullion. That would collapse the three major bullion banks in London, which would collapse the entire global banking system bullion banking system.
The three major bullion banks are, I would imagine, three of the four biggest banks, right?
Absolutely.
HSBC.
JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs. I mean, yeah.
So it's not just the U.S., it's the three biggest bullion banks
in London.
In London from both sides of the Atlantic.
And bearing in mind, there are 6 bullion banks that clear the LPMCL, which is the London Clearing Bank system, which is basically 6 bullion banks. Pretty much all of those control what's going on.